Hello and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 121. I'm not going to say good evening anymore. I'm relanguaging myself because you might not be listening or watching in the evening. It could be noon. It could be 4 a.m. Who knows? So we're going to keep this time of day neutral. I'm Tristan Jutra.
Ciao, I'm Tasia Custodi.
Bonjour, I am Greg Williams.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Me llamo Guillermo Plata.
Wow, that escalated quickly.
Good job, guys. We didn't even rehearse that. Woo!
You can find out more about this oddly multicultural experience at momentous.tv/links. I would bring up a thing, but my tools are obscured right now. But I'm just going to close that up there. And let's see. Let's have a little. Here we go. Momentous.tv/links. And you can find out more about the team at momentous.tv/team and the audio version of this at momentous.tv/podcast. At any of those places, please like, subscribe, hit the bells and the buttons, and kick a puppy, punch a kitten, whatever you got to do.
Punch a kitten, yeah.
I don't know. That's in poor taste. All right, let's get on with this. We're going to keep this to a tight hour, right, guys?
Let's get after it.
Let's get after it. Indeed. Starting up with a little bit of follow-up. Threads. Last week we talked about Threads, fancy new Threads. Instagram/Meta's foray into the microblogging sphere. And one of the little news stories that came up this week was how engagement on Threads has kind of fallen off the cliff after the 100 million signups in just a couple of weeks, surpassing the amazing rate of even ChatGPT signups. We talked about how that's not exactly comparing apples to apples because ChatGPT people had to sign up from scratch, whereas with Threads, you could simply click a few buttons and your Instagram profile is automatically ported over, but still pretty impressive nonetheless. And, you get that whole shiny new object syndrome. People are checking it out, having a gay old time for a bit, and then things have dropped off a little bit. Similarly, we've heard about how ChatGPT usage has dropped off this summer, and people are wondering, well, is that because kids are out of school and they're not cheating so much on their homework anymore? TVD. But this whole thing with Threads is like, well, now people are going, well, is this whole space, this text-based microblogging space, is it just too limited of an opportunity? Or is it gonna tank? Is it gonna join the ranks of T2 and Blue Sky and Hive and what was the other one? Spill. Mastodon is still going. There's a lot of tech-centric folks there. There's one case being made on The Verge that let's not declare Threads dead already for a few reasons, and part of that has to do with the fact that it's Meta is behind it. They're going to stick with this for a little while. Twitter has proved that there is some demand for this kind of service, but Twitter's still kind of imploding, despite their efforts to try to continue to add features and try new things and whatnot. But it's a bit of a poop show. Lots of celebrities have come over, journalists, athletes, and so on have migrated to Threads. If not exclusively, they're at least cross-posting, because a lot of those folks were already on Instagram, and so that's a good sign for Threads. There are a number of features that Instagram can continue to implement with Threads, including deploying a web app, which currently doesn't exist, deploying things like multi-account use, which would be great for people who are working at agencies and managing multiple accounts. We didn't even talk about last week. They haven't promoted Threads really in Facebook, which you've got 3 billion people there you can tap into, or WhatsApp. That's the whole sort of dark horse in this whole operation as well. Meta owns WhatsApp as well, so they could promote Threads to those sorts of users. Unless there would be there's a bit of a different user base, so there could be a bit of a revolt. They're playing it very, very cool at the moment. So, Tasia, as the official Momentous social media correspondent here, what's your you were active on Threads pretty quickly. What have you noticed about your own usage so far? Should we be planning the funeral parade route for Threads already, or is there still more to come?
Oh, well, I haven't been on in about a week. So, I just found it was kind of a vacuum. It's not really any different to me. Like everybody was saying, it's gonna be a Twitter killer and all this stuff and all this, you can have all this engagement. And because of how the algorithm is set, it's just not the case for me. For smaller users, we talked a little bit about this last week, but for users that don't already have a huge following to take over from Instagram, I was posting into the void just like I do on Twitter. And then oftentimes I was just seeing the same people's stuff. So even though I've tried to like unfollow and follow and get a bit more strategic, again, because of how they're pushing that algorithm, I just kept seeing like maybe things I don't really care about. So I think like the shininess wore off for everybody, not just me. And there's people that are still on it and love it in terms of they are seeing the engagement and they're connecting with their group of people on Instagram in a way they haven't connected before. They're acting like it's kind of like their DMs almost, but just removed out of the Instagram app. For me, it just hasn't been that. I'm just kind of after that first week of it's so exciting. Now what? And like friends, liking each other's stuff and replying, it just kind of stopped. So I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but I found myself today, like I haven't been on it in honestly probably about a week. And like, even today, like I'm still scrolling Twitter when I, like was waiting at my doctor's appointment and, like at least that way I'm getting like my news sources or I'm getting something, like I'm not even necessarily active in terms of tweeting, but I'm still getting like more of a type of value out of it. Whereas right now, at least with how the algorithm is on Threads, I just don't see an inherent value currently for me. And it's probably goes to like, yeah, I'm sure if I had made it part of my strategy in the first week and was just like going all in on a thread strategy and building an audience and whatever. But I mean, I work.
Well, that's your first problem. Okay, so it seems that the people reporting various levels of engagement, and it probably depends on the nature of their existing audience that they've ported over from Instagram and the audience that they've gone after to build a following on Threads. Will, how is it for you? Is it still the new and shiny for you? Are you getting much engagement there with your because you've only done one of your accounts, your beat making account, your DJ account there. What's your perspective so far with Threads?
I mean, I think I'm maybe a little bit more positive than Tasha is on it, but to be honest, I haven't used it in like 4 or 5 days. So I like the idea, but I was never a Twitter guy. So I'm like Instagram, so it feels like Instagram, but Twitter. But the truth is, I never use Twitter all that much. So it's like, it's been fun to poke around, but ultimately it hasn't captured my imagination more than Instagram.
And that's one of the things that some people have complained about in the past. Friend of the show, Jamie Reynolds, I remember years and years ago talking with him about Twitter, and he said, I just don't get it, man.
Okay, there are a few stories that make your words like
so it's that whole behavior change. If you're not haven't previously been engaged with microblogging and or like sort of thread sort of the lowercase threads of conversations online with folks, then if you only have so many hours in the day, are you going to add this to your social media repertoire? Gray, what's your perspective on the approach that Threads is taking with the really pushing the algorithmic feed so far, especially in these days where people aren't necessarily following tons of accounts? It's to show them some things that they think might be interesting, and they still, as yet, do not have a following only tab that you can click on to only see people who you're following. In the early days of Twitter, for example, there was a number of people known as Twitter completists, and some people still do that. I did early in the day. I wanted to see every tweet from everyone I followed, which was practical when you only followed a few dozen people. Nowadays, it's a little more out of control. So what is your take on the Thread situation as it stands now? And how much do you think these algorithmic play is working versus offering the following only view, which they have not yet done?
I think Tasha's right. The drinking from the fire hose, and the fire hose doesn't taste particularly good. is a bit of a challenge right now. I know for myself, looking at my various social media network options, a lot of things feel like the well's been poisoned. I know like Reddit right now, I'm not terribly keen on because of what's going on with the API. Twitter, Elon's really kind of made this sort of distasteful to be on. Threads doesn't feel like it's my drink that's been poured. The only thing that's really actually appealing to me currently is YouTube, which is something that seems to actually be a place where I've curated my own experience based on the account that I've set up and then watching a few habits that I've got. So this algorithmic play is interesting. YouTube is presenting me new stuff based on the things that I follow. So I do get new options, but integrated into things that I've expressed interest in. And it seems like it understands me. Threads right now doesn't. So I'm not spending a ton of time in a lot of these apps. And to be honest, my time down, I checked my, that's what I was just doing when I accidentally loaded that delightful video from CBC. My screen time is way down. I'm down by about 70%. So that is curious to me. It's just, obviously it's summer and there's grass outside to touch, but I didn't realize that I had been motivated to touch grass quite that much.
Maybe Threads will be the best thing ever for our well-being, getting people off of social media because they realize, wait a second, I don't have to spend all this time staring at a screen. I could read a book. I could, pet a cat. I could touch grass, as you say. So we shall see. Again, it's a tricky time of year to have launched as well. They were launching early to take advantage of Twitter's dumpster fireness, so to speak. But will this backfire, given that it maybe tends to be a bit of a lull in social media in general? More to come on that one. All right. Speaking of the evolving stories, let's talk a little bit about AI. And Tasia is going to tell us about how thousands of authors have signed a letter urging AI makers to stop stealing books. What's going on here, Tasia? It sounds like a bit of a follow-up to Sarah Silverman last week and with the lawsuit there. And can you set this up for us?
Yeah, so last week we talked a little bit about how Sarah Silverman and a couple other authors are actually suing OpenAI and Meta, claiming that they scraped their books to train their models. So it was kind of muddied because we weren't really sure too much of the details, like how do we know where they're getting the information from their books from. Mm-hmm. So now what we're seeing is there's an open letter that's been signed by about 8,500 authors, fiction, nonfiction, like the whole gamut. And they have written it to all kind of the language models. So think Bard and ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff. And they are saying that, they can't really, these systems have been these programs have been a little mum on how they're actually training the models. So it's did you scrape samples from bookstores and reviews? Did you borrow every book from a library? Did you download something illegally, from some websites or something, that have scraped the content illegally online? But the one thing they know for sure is that they did not go to publishers to license them. Mm-hmm. So that's a whoopsie. So that is what they know for sure. They just still don't know how they're getting that content. So this is not a lawsuit. Again, it's just an open letter asking them for a few things. They have 3 demands, I'll call them, in this letter. The first one is for these companies to obtain permission for the use of their copyrighted material. The second one is to compensate the writers for the works that in the past that they have scraped, and then for the ongoing use of the work. But then the third one, to me, and I want to know what you guys think, because this one, I just don't know how this one holds up. But the third thing they're asking for is compensate the writers fairly for their use of the works in the AI output. So whether or not the outputs are infringing under current law. So this is where it gets really gray to me in terms of lines being blurred, because the first 2 things I can understand. You want to be paid for your work, and if they're going to use from your work to train a model, sure. But then what that model comes up with, they want to be paid for that too. So again, this is not a lawsuit, but what do you guys think about this? Because the third one really, I don't know. I just feel like it's too much of a kind of messy line for me to say like, oh yeah, sure, we'll meet all your demands.
It seems like a pretty tall order, just as an initial impression, to like sort out deals with every publisher and or permission from every author, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Cliff's Notes and its Canadian corollary Coles Notes, I would assume, but I know Cliff's Notes for sure, did never license anything. They're protected under fair use. They were actually able to create their summaries. They were human written summaries, but they also included excerpts as well, and not licensed, all done under fair use. A more modern corollary, which is Blinkist, which is a subscription service which provides summaries a la Cliff's Notes. They do have some licensing arrangements with publishers and some income sharing there. So I'm not sure if they had to do that, but maybe they did that to be a good partner. The industrial scale that we're talking about with all these language models, such as ChatGPT and Llama and Lambda and Anthropic and so on, it'd be really interesting to see if they would actually, if that would be a feasible thing to do. And given that the precedent has been set under fair use for the other things, but it's like the difference is we're not having humans involved. This is just automated. Gray, do you have anything to add on this? We talked a little bit about your experience as an author and the approach that you took. With all these lawsuits and open letters being signed and whatnot, like what do you see as actually a practical way forward for this?
I think probably the biggest thing here is that looking at how things are generated, right? We talked about like how is the final result achieved? And people have said, well, it's a bit of a black box. No, it's not a bit of a black box. There is an algorithm here that is taking defined quantities of, this qualitative thing and applying it to create something new. It's 30% this, it's 4% that, it's 2% this. It's grabbing this across all of these generative language pieces. So yeah, you know what? There's some math involved here. And they're doing it on their end. Now, whether or not they're able to show that is really up to that generative model. But I think looking at that and saying, if this is 13% based on my work, I sure as hell want to get paid for that. And if they can't show that, should they be allowed to do it?
Aren't you talking too about when you mention that, like, how come no artists, like we talked so much about AI generated art, and it's like, well, then here we go into this uncharted territory. Because what you're saying is what it outputs, it's pulling from all things that people have already created, but to create its own unique image, just like this is creating its own unique text, or maybe in the voice of an author or whatever. So like, is this the floodgate opening?
I think it is. I think it is. I think, and honestly, we've talked for years about micropayments, being able to have percentages being able to be distributed to creators for things that they have had a hand in creating. This is doable, right? It makes me think back to Office Space. Remember, like the fraction of a penny every time that a single transaction went through, and it's like, it seemed ridiculous at the time, but it's actually doable. It's actually quantifiable, and I think that right now, the way that we've got this set up, the idea that it's too hard to assign a value to this and it's too hard to pay the artist is bunk. I don't think it's too hard. If anything can handle that kind of massive calculation and redistribution, AI is it.
I guess one of the key questions is that what would we be paying the artists for ultimately? Like inspiration? Do authors who are inspired by Hemingway or Dostoevsky or Margaret Lawrence, do they have to pay those artists for being inspired? These are learning
copyrights
models.
Over, they're
dead. Say again?
Copyrights over, they're dead.
Well, but we're not even talking about, you can't copyright or trademark a style or inspiration, and we're not lifting passages straight out of these things. It's just like how any of us gets inspired or learns the craft from others, and we're not compensating those artists. So why should the machines, right? Will, you've got something to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know this is somewhat different, but on a similar track, people talk about AI and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, I I work for a company that creates creative things, and I know there's a bit of not just my company, but other companies. There's things like Redbubble, there's things like fandom that use their intellectual property. And some of it is, especially with Redbubble, some of it is artistic interpretation or fan art, but some of it is just straight rip.
Copy
and
paste. Yeah.
Copy based. Fandom is one that several media and creators are trying to get them to stop. With video games and with movies, they're taking images, they're taking text straight out and putting it into a fandom, which is like a wiki. They're basically trying to own the wiki space, and then they put ads on that wiki. So they're making money off the ads. So, I mean, we're all talking about AI. What about stuff like that? I mean, that's stuff where, but is it because it's companies? Like, there are individuals creating that stuff, and that, I mean, that's even more of a no-brainer. But the internet's just too big to crack down on that stuff. You know, you have to nail these people down. It's like nailing Jello to a wall.
Tasia, a final word before we move on?
I think this is a job for people that can wrap their head around how to monitor and how we're going to give proper copyright usage across the board, which we've talked about so many times, of like technology moving faster than our laws. So that's for the smart people to figure out.
I said, this is where someone chimes in and goes, Bitcoin fixes this.
NFTs, it's a secret.
All right. Speaking of AI, one story that we spoke about a few weeks ago, actually a couple months ago now, as Microsoft was rolling out its integration of GPT technology from OpenAI into not only Bing, but into its suite of Microsoft 365 tools. And wow, that sounded pretty exciting and intriguing. But now the other shoe has dropped. What's it going to cost? And just as an example, here in Canada, where we pay about $7 or $8 a month Canadian for just a per user for a straight up business basic account for Microsoft 365. First, we would have to upgrade to at least business standard for about $18 Canadian for every user that wanted to use Copilot. And then because only certain types of accounts qualify for Copilot, and then to add Copilot on top of that is going to be $30 US per month for the convenience of having these AI-powered Copilot tools built into PowerPoint, Excel, Word, and so on and so forth, which could be very convenient and very powerful. And for large organizations, hey, maybe no big whoop for the additional productivity gain. But for small businesses like us, especially with uncertain times and all that kind of thing, it's like, oof. I guess we're not rolling that across every team member, because that's like a double upgrade for us here. Gray, do you think there's value here? Is Microsoft getting a little too greedy, or is this like what it's worth, do you think?
I think this is pricing itself out of the market. I don't know that many people are looking to look at this and go, yes, this is a good value. This is one of those, like, you can do a lot of this stuff for far less with a few extra steps. And I think trying to convince, CFOs that, yeah, this is worth $30 a user. I mean, where this is probably going to survive is on volume pricing, right? And if your organization is able to negotiate a deal with Microsoft where you're getting your organization at a couple extra bucks per user, we'll see that. I don't think you're going to see the massive uptick here. It's basically like, hear this argument to the CFO. Yes, I want to pay $30 a month more per user so that my employees have to do less. The CFOs out there they're like, I can hear their skin crawling. It's just, oh, well, we'll be more productive. Will you though? This is like the whole work from home thing again. It's just, I don't. Maybe I'm on the right edge to this, but I don't think Microsoft's got the right price point on this. And I don't think they've got the right pitch. Yeah.
So I think, I mean, there for sure is some value in having the tools integrated. Like you said, normally it would take a number of extra steps, but here, one of the examples, they show someone working in Microsoft Word online and being able to link to a couple of documents, either from your local drive or from your OneDrive or your SharePoint or what have you, and combing through the info on those documents and creating a draft of a type of a letter, a project plan, what have you. Those, I mean, all of those steps, extra steps that would normally take if you wanted to use the third-party tools or copy and paste and et cetera, et cetera. There is savings, time savings there for sure. So what do you think would be the right kind of price point for this that would make it a no-brainer?
Well, so to be honest, like I'm looking at this and I'm seeing in my head 5 years ago, Apple is announcing this as a feature for Pages. Google is announcing this as a feature for Docs. How much more money is this costing you to run? Because somebody's going to come out here and say, by the way, we've included AI for free. And that's the right price, right? Yeah, this is exactly it. Like this is what Microsoft Office should do next. And it shouldn't be a charge of $365 a year. Right.
Yep.
Like this right here is exactly what the software should do. And I think that pricing this as an extra feature, it's going to take one company to go, we're doing this for free. And you're just going to see the tilt and slide. Microsoft had a huge opportunity here, I think, as a take, for example, the SOS feature in the iPhone 14, right? The ability to satellite call, free for the first 2 years. Get people hooked. And Microsoft had the opportunity to do this. They didn't. And I think it's a huge miss.
You think they should have waited a little longer to monetize?
That's exactly it. This should be launched as a feature for free. And, if the price goes up for Microsoft Office 365, sure. But yeah, they've goofed on this one.
So speaking of the costs associated with this, I mean, one of the things that has been established pretty well is that these generative AI models require tons of compute to make them happen. And one report I saw was talking about 36 cents per query to chat GPT, let alone some of these more sophisticated tools with multiple steps involved and whatnot. So that can start adding up pretty quick, as when you think of the just in a given conversation with chat GPT, if it goes on, if you go back and forth 5 or 10 times, all of a sudden that's a few bucks right there, and you're only paying $20 US a month. Like, how long could we expect that to be subsidized? Of course, compute gets cheaper as time goes on, but NVIDIA can only make these chips so fast, these $40,000 chips to power these server farms. Like, there is a lot of expense behind this. So and Microsoft has pledged $10 billion to OpenAI, and that was their investment, was in Azure credits, basically. So there is a lot of actual hard costs here, not to mention some people have talked about the impact on climate change and stuff like that, and the amount of water that is used to cool the servers and so on. So there are some externalities here, but I mean, I totally get what you're saying. Like, maybe they should have done free trials, even it's 30 days free trial to get in there a bit more, or make it free, like you said, for a year and get people hooked. And your conversion rate would probably be pretty beefy, given if it becomes as an indispensable tool as they seem to think it is. Now, Tasia, you've used some of these tools similar tools built into Google, and currently they're free, but Google has in the past, started to charge for things like Google Workspace and the like. And otherwise you pay in other ways, like with having to view advertising and so on. What would you pay to have the sort of tools we're talking about here with Microsoft 365, or what you've been using so far in Google? What would be a good price point for you, do you think?
So Google has all this and more included in their Google Workspace accounts, whether you have a business starter account or up through an enterprise account. So with Google Workspace, I think it's one user per month can be at anywhere from $6 a month, and then you go to 12 or 18, or then your enterprise pricing. But their Duet AI for Workspace is already available. There's no extra charge for it. So when you're in Docs, there's a Help Me Write feature, which is also in Gmail as well. And There's help me visualize in slides that can generate images for you and complete slideshows for you. There's help me organize, which will generate complete Google Sheets for you with the coding and all. And you do not have to know cell formatting at all. And it is all included. So like for me, I think I either have the starter or like the standard plan. So it's either $6 or $12 a month. It's just me for my business. But that's like, to me, if they were like, oh, you're paying this and then you have to pay more, I'm with Gray. I'm not buying it. So to me, it's funny because I'm just kind of like, oh, catch up, Microsoft, and good luck. Good luck. Because by the way, if y'all don't know, the Duet AI features are friggin' sick. They're friggin' sick.
Sick.
Super sick, guys.
Sick, bro.
So Meta has decided to take a different approach with currently offering up the use of Llama 2, their AI model, which is open source, and they are allowing commercial applications built on Llama 2 at the moment. Not to be confused with Lambda, which powers things like Google Bard, I believe. So a bit of a different approach there. Again, it's been well established that Llama is not nearly as powerful as what we've seen from OpenAI and from Google so far. But it should be interesting to see if this helps them establish more of a beachhead. Because right now, most people aren't talking about Meta in the AI conversation. They're sort of quietly working on their stuff, and because they've been so distracted with the metaverse over the last couple of years, and tens of billions of dollars later, they're pivoting to AI a bit more. But so make it free.
It's unlikely that anyone is going to say, "I'll pack in my bags for Llama" anytime soon.
Oh boy!
Delete your account. And then in other news, this is what Will is going to be most excited about, is that we've got a brand new AI company being launched by Elon Musk. They had a live stream on
You're not
July
allowed
14th.
to say his name in front of Will. We've gone over this
3 times, and he appears behind you with a knife.
Yeah. Rent free. All right, X.AI. So that the goal of XAI is to understand the true nature of the universe, according to their website. So basically, the whole idea behind this venture is to target AI on the mysteries of the universe, as opposed to necessarily being a general large language model, to be all things to all people, or to help us, write resumes and cover letters and PowerPoint presentations and the like. Now, for however complicated the modern Elon Musk character is nowadays, he's not afraid of big challenges, whether it was helping to electrify automobiles and that the important part that is playing in attacking the problem of climate change. Then of course there is low cost rocket launches, which have changed the entire modern space race. Then we have things like Solar City and things like Neuralink, which is trying to help people walk again, amongst other things. So big problems, and lots of money to throw at them. Will, do you think what are your thoughts on this particular venture, despite what you might think of Elon himself?
I mean, I did say I can separate the man from the product, but
or the machine.
It does. I mean, it's a little much, just the, finding the mysteries of the universe. It's like, get over yourself to a certain extent. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of, there's an episode of the Electric Mayhem, which is the Disney Plus show, where the character who mumbles, his name is Lips, is giving a TED talk, and his whole thing is that he's going to save the universe, and he's like, rah, 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 in our lifetime. It's like so a TED talk. It's funny. So it's just like how are you going to do it? I just let's talk more walk. Let's see you do it.
Yeah, Cybertruck.
Yeah.
So
Hey, the first one rolled off the lot. They do get the first one off the line.
Roadster. Sorry. Semi. So, Gray, I mean, you have been reasonably even-handed over the years about Elon. I know we've got good Elon and bad Elon. Do you think? I mean, and he has gone on the record as expressing concerns about and even like years ago, talking about how AI could be an existential threat to humanity. This is even before it was in vogue to talk about AI. And then more recently was one of the parent co-signers sort of suggesting that there'd be a pause put on research, blah, blah, blah. The cynical take was to help to let everyone else catch up that wasn't open AI. What is your take on this? It's pretty vague at the moment, but do you think, I mean, is there any stake to this, Sizzle?
Right now, this feels very pathological. It's just he really does seem to have a penchant for headlines, and to Will's point, like, okay, great. So you want to talk about the secrets of the interview? How about this? How about this? You've announced a new AI company. You are looking to dig deep into the secret. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right. Like, and okay, so you're investigating as to whether or not we're a simulation. We're already at the point where we don't know. Right. So it's fine. It feels like a slow news day. It feels like I've done some bad things with Twitter. It feels like maybe I'm at a Cafe Bustelo.
Just change the narrative a little.
Yeah. So this is wagging the dog just a little bit. If you had like some specific things about the true nature of the universe, right? Maybe. But right now, this just feels like, look at me again. Yeah, okay, we have. Great. Launch another car into space, dude.
It feels a little bit like something out of 1984 or something as well. Yeah. I don't know. I'm getting a lot of those vibes these days, things like creative truth and otherwise known as lies. It's like
I've gone with proctological because he's so far up his own. Anyway, you get where I'm going.
Yeah.
Kasia, are you buying it?
No.
Solid.
All right. So, for the record, the key points. I mean, some of the researchers on their team are from they're real researchers from OpenAI, Google Research, Microsoft Research, and DeepMind. And this will be a separate from X Corp, but will collaborate with X, which owns Twitter, Tesla, and other companies. So, I think it's another one of these cases. Like, watch this space. Money talks, BS walks. We know he's got money, so let's see if he can.
Can I add a quote from a great man? Before you walk the walk, or before you talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. Ric Flair.
Yep. I will tack onto that. That actually needs to be their tagline. And much like Windows 95 took from the Rolling Stones, "Start Me Up," I think these guys, if they do ever launch something that's usable, if they go with X, go and give it to you, they will have redeemed themselves instantly. Done.
To be the man, you got to beat the man. Also, Ric Flair.
So, moving from Windows 95 to other things renowned for crashing, VanMoof, a popular e-bike maker, is bankrupt.
I love their first album.
So,
conceptual.
VanMoof was a Dutch e-bike maker known for their sort of unique style of bikes, very geometric, and they were even featured in an Apple keynote for either last year or the year before as having integrated Apple's Find My technology into the bikes. So basically, imagine an embedded AirTag. So that's kind of cool, something that's kind of harder for a thief to rip out or rip off of your existing bike if you just put a garden variety AirTag on there. But they were almost like the e-bike maker sort of as a tech company. There was lots of splashy cashy going around there. They're known as the most well-funded e-bike company in the world, and maybe they benefited from a bit of a COVID bump, and now they are in bankruptcy proceedings. There's a lot of Strum and Drang amongst their current customers, because this is a digital enabled vehicle with an app and the like. And there is some advice being put out to current users. Gray, what should what is the issue for users, and what should the users be doing to protect themselves should VanMoof go Van Poof?
Ha, nice. So these VanMoof bikes have a digital key that enables the bike. And here's actually where we need to actually flip the bit, right? Because everyone said this is an app-enabled bike. It has a digital key that allows control of the bicycle, access to Find My, customization features. That is incorrect. That is not what this is. This is an app-disabled bike.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Right? This is something where if you do not have access to these keys, if you don't have access to this app, this device, which has been around for 400 years, does not work. It is disabled via app because you don't have access to someone's servers. This is the stupidest thing on the planet. It's a lot like I tried to put a pod into my friend Ged's Keurig. Because it didn't have the right QR code, I couldn't make hot chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
App disabled bullshit needs to go. We're done with it, right? And so this is just another example of DRM gone wrong. I'm sick and tired of this stuff. So VanMoof basically has said, we've run out of money because, I don't know, they probably had an open bar at the headquarters, a lot of money going around, where everyone else who's been able to make an e-bike has been able to actually make this work with far less money. There's some embezzlement of the M kind going on somewhere here. And so there's another company called Cowboy who makes another e-bike solution, and they've created an app called Bikey that basically allows you to download your key from the VanMoof servers so you have a localized copy, which should have been the default feature in the first place if they weren't using the app to basically create a digital lockout. I'm also, I love my Teslas, but I'm looking at my Tesla folks right now and going, hey, those software features that actually enable hardware on your system? A little bit like this, right? This stuff shouldn't exist. Canon cameras have had the same thing for the longest time. The same basic feature set with a firmware update changes one camera into another. This is, if the hardware is there. If the hardware is there, let users use it. And this is just, it's been a decade and a half going on, 2 decades. I have lost so much hair and so much sleep in the time since this has been a thing that seeing this, it's not even schadenfreude anymore. I'm sad. I'm sad for the people that have bought these bikes. I'm sad that they're having to jump through these hoops. I'm sad for anybody that bought into this nonsense. You know what? If you got a VanMoof, get Bikey and then make better decisions next time.
Well, and that really raises the larger point, as you alluded to, of buying devices that traditionally were dumb devices, right? Like, I'm a big fan of dumb TVs. I don't need smart TV functionality because a lot of that seems to be a Trojan horse for getting, surveillance and monitoring on our televisions for data collection to subsidize the business models of Roku and Vizio and others. Give me the dumbest TV around, and I'll connect a set-top box to it, like an Apple TV or what have you. Now, I have a little bit of personal experience with something like this. I bought a neat little kind of a sleeve or add-on thing for my father-in-law years and years ago for his iPhone 4S at the time. And I can't remember what it was called, but it was like, it gave you a grip and a shutter button so you could use it more effectively as a camera, such as the iPhone 4S could take photos at the time, which was, better than the 4 or the 3G or what have you. But the problem is that the manufacturer didn't update their software, and it quite quickly went obsolete. So he didn't even get a chance to install the software and use this, because one got it at on a clearance or something like that, but it was only like a year old and not much more than that. And boom, because I guess Apple had upgraded it had maybe made some major changes in the iOS, and the developers had to update it and didn't. So that was basically a brick at that point. And and I get skeptical of this sort of thing. Like whenever we were shopping for window air conditioning units, and they go, oh, this one's got Alexa, and this one's got an app, and it's got Wi-Fi. It's like, well, do I need? Some of that's sort of a nice to have, but for me, that's great as an extra, but it should not be mission critical. So hopefully you can still ride your VanMoof, like it's not going to lock up the wheels or anything. But there's the whole battery. I mean, these are more technical type of vehicles now, so fingers crossed that the users are not going to be totally hooped on this. Will, you've got a bit of perspective on these sorts of smart devices. And
yeah, I mean, I'm always, I think I brought up this example before, but I'm always against like needless Bluetooth or needless linking to computers or phones. Like my dishwasher has Bluetooth on it. Like why? But the one I was thinking of more was it's a bit of a thing in the DJ world about being able to still get updates for your mixer. So, for example, the Rain, some of the earlier Rains, I think it was like the 57 SL or something like that, and the 61. Basically, when Serato decided to go past Serato Live and Rain didn't do the updates, you couldn't access DVS, the software that allows you to use your computer. So basically, you could use it analog. You could hook in a turntable and just use it analog, but you couldn't use DVS software anymore, which, I mean, people were really furious about it. And it's actually one of the things that is people complain about with Pioneer is some of the Pioneers, like the Pioneer S9, isn't can't be used default with Serato. You actually need updates from Pioneer so if Pioneer stops supporting it, then you're hooped. You wouldn't be able to use future Serato softwares in the future. So it's definitely a thing where it's like, you spend $3,000 on a mixer and you got to buy a new one in 7 years, or 5 years or 4 years, or if you hit the cycle wrong. So some people, obviously that's a big thing for people, and the hardcore people are often complaining to companies about that with mixers.
Gray, I think you thought of another example that we both
two actually.
we both lived through.
I think you've actually still got my Tractor S2 Mark, Tractor S2 Mark II, right? My DJ mixer. Yep. That only works on Tractor DJ or Tractor Pro 2. So if you're the new one, but you and I went down to the States and bought these, which was an automatic. It was an ODB, onboard diagnostics, OBD2 sensor, and it was great for basically tracking your mileage, tracking trips that you made. These things were $100, and they were great. And I think you and I both got the email at the same time saying that they were moving to a monthly service that was we were ineligible for because we were in Canada. So not only did they kill the functionality of the device that we have, but they made it unable for us to actually get the new device or use the new service.
And I think they're totally actually just plain out gone at this point.
So this article is actually from 2020.
Yeah.
So yeah, a couple of years. I mean, I've still got it kicking around because I'm a pack rat and bad with things. So, but yeah, this is another example of like this was hardware that we used and was a great feature until software rolled it off and Automatic has now shut its doors.
Shame. And it was a neat thing because you could tie it in using an app, say like Zapier, and then what's the one, the free Zapier? I keep forgetting its name because my old brain, for doing macros and linking different services together.
IFTTT?
Yes, IFT. So if this then that. So you could do things with Automatic, like it would because it would be talking to your phone all the time, and so it could sense when you arrived at home, and you could have it do things like automatically turn on your lights if you wanted to, or get turn on the furnace, and you mentioned mileage, you could have it automatically every time you turn the car off, log your last trip and upload it automatically to Google Sheets. It's like so many great things like that, and just poof, gone. And maybe there's a way to roll your own, but I know that you've advocated in the past, Gray, for when companies like this shut down to open source as much as possible, but there's just not a ton of incentive. And if companies are like, just basically barely able to pay their last remaining employees to, turn off the lights, I guess it's kind of low down on the priority list, which is a real shame. So just be careful of smart devices, folks, because, if they rely on the smart functionality to be functional at all, and they go poof, like VanMoof, you're going to have a bad time. Asia, are you ready for some creepiness?
I'm ready.
So this is a little one of the rare cases, given the vast number of decades between Tasia and I and our respective ages. This is one time where our worlds actually collided. And last week, a number of Taylor Swift fans who ordered her Taylor's version of Speak Now, the latest in her re-recording of her past albums. There were some mispressings, and at least one TikToker went online, because that's what TikTokers do, and to play what they thought was this Taylor Swift amazing new record in the purple vinyl. And they heard some strange voices and electronic sounds emanating from their stereo system. What on earth was this? Turns out it was an electronic compilation called Happy Land, a compendium of electronic music from the British Isles, 1992 to 1996, Volume 1. And the first song, I believe, on the B-side was a track called Soul Vine, 70 Billion People, from my favorite band, Cabaret Voltaylor. So we got one of Tasia's favorite artists, if not her favorite, Matt, colliding worlds with mine. And so people were hearing this track going, what on earth is this? And Cabaret Voltaylor originally sampled some of the voices, the 70 billion people of Earth, where are they hiding, on their 1982 track called Yashar, and then used some of the samples again on this 1992 track of theirs. And the samples originally come from an old episode of The Outer Limits, which is sort of a Twilight Zone-esque TV series from the 1960s. So I have to say I was pretty excited, to see that happen. But Tasia, if you
this poor TikToker, it's so funny, the video, because like you go to spin Taylor's record and you're thinking you're gonna hear like just the friggin' best version of every single Speak Now song, and instead it's like this creepy voice talking about to the people of Earth. It's so funny, and the B-side is messed up too. It's wild. But her team, Taylor Nation, has like reached out, and they're obviously replacing. It's just a handful, like it just happened, and they're replacing everybody that it happened to. And I'm sure Taylor herself will probably sign stuff or give them merch or whatever. But like, wild, because I don't recall in my history of like buying albums or records or anything of like having it been incorrect.
It can happen though
at
the plant.
I've had it happen, but it wasn't that bad. It was another record by the same artist. It was DJ Qbert. It was a different album, and then he sent out an email to everyone that got the first run and said, "Hey, I totally pickled that up. It's totally the printer's fault. Like, we're reordering it, and we'll send you a free copy."
That's cool.
So this version of Speak Now is now being affectionately referred to as Speak Now Cursed Version, and some people have described it as as creepy, nightmarish, terrifying, haunted, scary, etc. I learned about this story because some of the people in the Cabaret Voltaire Facebook group had stumbled across the story, and I thought it was kind of amusing. But if you really, to cap this story off, someone went and did a mashup of Taylor Swift's song All Too Well, the lyrics from All Too Well, superimposed over Nag Nag Nag, which is an old Cabaret Voltaire song. So before they got into a more electronic music in the 80s and 90s, this was more proto-electronic, quasi and post-punk industrial from 1978. It's one of their actually larger independent hits called Nag Nag Nag. And I encourage you to listen to the whole thing because it is transcendent. I am not that familiar with Taylor Swift's music aside from a couple of the hits, but I listened to this with the, again, very strange and discordant background. And there's something about it that works. And some of my fellow Cabaret Voltaire enthusiasts on Facebook are like, I did not have the time of day for Taylor Swift, but I am intrigued by this combination. So if you haven't,
I would like to say, just for clarification, All Too Well is from the Red album, not from Speak Now. And also everybody should just do the 10-minute version of All Too Well if you're going to get into it. So it's All Too Well 10-minute version. Taylor's version is the full title. That is the only version that should exist. It is perfection.
Agree to disagree. Anyhow, speaking of mashups of a different kind, in your spare time, go and check out Johnny Cash singing Barbie Girl.
This was amazing.
Solid.
And he even breaks into a little bit of Spice Girls and some other artists in there as well. So I'll have a link for that in the show notes. Again, this is the world that we're living in now. We talked about Kanye singing Adele and Gautier and others. Now we've got Johnny Cash singing Aqua and Spice Girls. What a time to be alive, truly. All right, we're going to skip some other stuff and save it for next week. One story that got cut for time, or because I forgot, but it's too good for us to pass up. We haven't talked about food in a little while, but Burger King in Thailand has offered the ultimate cheeseburger, perfect for vegetarians, not so much for vegans, but it has 20 slices of processed cheese and no meat.
Cheese with quotation marks around it, because that is definitely not real cheese.
Oh my god!
That's CHEEZ. That's what that is. I am so in. You know what? I'm gonna try to make this. I'm done the podcast, into the kitchen, all the craft singles. I will not see you next week. I'll be in the ICU.
Uncle Sam, I will not eat the government cheese. It makes me wheeze and prevents me from going to bathroom with ease.
Accurate, Will.
Apparently, this is for real, and it launched at a sale price of just over $3 US, down from its regular price of $11 US. Like Gray, I mean, I would try this.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, we've had the double down burger from KFC, which is you got chicken patties instead of a bun, and then other miscellaneous stuff in the middle. So why not have a cheeseburger that is true to its name? It is what it says on the tin. It's just cheese and nothing else. Road trip to Thailand, anyone?
I'm in.
Okay.
That's
All
right.
right. Let's get to our momentous picks and land this thing. Tasia, what is your momentous pick of the week?
Oh my god, are you guys ready? It's on its docking station.
Ooh.
Can everybody see it? Oh god. Sorry. I'm making a mess.
She cracks it on live TV.
What for our listeners, Tasia? What is this?
I am currently holding up. Oh, look at my cool reflection. I'm gonna.
Oh, that's art.
I'm being artistic.
That's the intersection of engineering and art.
I'm currently holding in my hand the all-new Pixel tablet. So this is a 10.9 inch, I believe, LCD display. It's powered by Google Tensor G2. There's like 8 gigabytes of RAM, multi-day battery life. This one that I have, or they all might come with 256 gig storage. This one is like a hazel color, and they come with these charging speaker docks. And the charging speaker docks match the color.
I like it.
I think is lovely. And I just set it up the other day to, like, you can have it in docking mode, which you can set your little wallpapers, and it can just look like a cute little, so it's kind of becomes its own smart speaker, but it's also a tablet. And so far, I'm quite liking it.
Yes. It's hazel, but not hazelnuts, because it doesn't look like Nutella.
Correct. If it was Nutella, I'd eat it.
Yeah, same.
So from what I understand, in the US, it was a pretty aggressive price. Like, wasn't it like $299 or $399 US, including the charging stand? But it seems to be a fair bit more in Canada. $699 Canadian, even with the exchange. That is a bit more dear, it seems. What do you think the use case? This is just as a tablet, or are you going to be using it more as a digital picture frame or a smart home hub? What do you think is the killer app for this?
Well, I think that's what their hope is, that it's going to be kind of your all-encompassing device that you can take it on the go with you as your go-to day-to-day tablet. But then when it's not in use, why not put it in docking mode and use it as a digital picture frame? Use it as your smart home hub, because it is powered obviously by Google Smart Assistant and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's kind of a mix of all three. For me, it's interesting. So, like, I just got my hands on it. Was it last week I texted you guys like, oh my God, Christmas in July. But it's just interesting because, as you guys know, I have an iPad. That's been my tablet, but it's an old iPad, and I really only use it to, like, watch my workout videos. And when I travel, I download Netflix shows. So, like, I really, like, it's Wi-Fi only. I don't have a plan on there. So, like, I was saying to Brett, like, if I like this, I think I might switch, and my tablet might just become the Pixel tablet. But that's because that's how I use it. So it would be a different, for those listening, like it's a different use case. If you're stuck in like a certain ecosystem, like an Apple ecosystem, and you use certain Apple apps, like, I don't know, Freeform or any of the apps that kind of connect with each other, and you do a lot of work on the go and you need to be able to pull up your files, like, I can't claim that you can make the switch to this. For my use case, this could be a game changer.
All right. We'll be looking forward to seeing a video from you on that sometime.
I actually have a
soon.
training session on it tomorrow with part of the team. So I'm working on content, and then I'll also keep you guys posted if I do switch it and use that as my kind of daily tablet, and how I like it. I'll let you know.
Good stuff. Will, what is your momentous pick this week?
Well, my pick is, it was actually one of my selections for most anticipated a year or so ago. It's the video game Stray. So my wife and I have been playing it. I will say we were totally freaked out at the beginning. It's very upsetting and disconcerting what happens to our friend. But we're sticking in there, and the gameplay is awesome. They've got the catness down like 110%. When he gets his harness on, he struggles against it. He goes against the carpet. He doesn't want the harness on him. It's just, they got cats down. So I do recommend it. I wish that the end goal was a bit different than what it seems to be, but I'm enjoying the game a lot.
What you mentioned the danger element of it. Did you find it stressful given how you care for your own
I find
kitties
it very
so much?
stressful. yeah. And like I won't go into what his motivations are, but the motivations that they give him are not the motivations that I want him to have or it to have. But I am enjoying the game. I enjoy how much they got cats down, and it is fun, controlling a cat.
All right, we'll have to check it out. We have it as well. Stephanie has just started playing it, and I watched for a few minutes, and it is remarkable. The movement, how fluid it is, very cat-like. And one of the key moves that the cat does in Stray is like just batting stuff off of high surfaces onto the ground and whatnot. It seems to be really good at that.
I just love any time that it escapes from something, it licks itself. That's very much like a cat.
Gray does not have a pick this week, so we will do my pick real quick, which is we did this as a belated Father's Day for Stephanie's dad. We went and saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and I think Indy was pretty fresh in our minds because just the night before we watched the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, and despite what a number of critics, accredited critics said on Rotten Tomatoes and elsewhere, this was a lot of fun, and it's obviously an older Indy. It's set decades later than I think it's the late 60s, so decades later than the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it's Indy as an old man, right? And dealing with that. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge was great. I don't really pay much attention to reviews, especially before seeing a show, but when you see the tomato score on this movie, it's quite clear that a lot of reviewers tend to and what's the writing equivalent of enjoying the smell of their own farts?
Self-indulgent.
They like they like to sound be pithy and be clever and whatnot. But on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score was 68%, so it's still quote unquote fresh. If it's above 60%, it's fresh. But the audience score 88%, so that tells you it's a fun popcorn movie, right? It's not taking itself too seriously. Whenever you see sometimes the critic score is really high and the audience score low, well, then that's like an art house movie, and some people have trouble even understanding it. But it can still be good. If you see movies that are, both quite high, then it's almost a sure bet. You've got your Top Gun Mavericks of the world and the like. but then when they're both low, that's kind of like the sign to stay away. But in a case like this, where the regular fans seem to enjoy it more than the critics, I think in this case I'm going with the regular fans. So if you're a fan of indie, I don't think it'll disappoint. All right, projects. Will, you got some fresh beats for us?
Yeah. So this is my 50th looper, collaboration or solo, and I teamed together with a friend of mine, Scotty Scratches, and we did a looper together. This is the second of the team up series, so it's basically just me and one other person, and I kind of use the old Marvel team up kind of comic book idea, and yeah, so it's I think it's pretty funky. We both did some funky beats. I played off what he did, and yeah, we just had fun with it. So I'm really proud of this one. I'm proud of all of them, but I am proud of this one, and I really enjoyed working with Scotty.
I have to say, I love what you've been doing with some of your art lately. Your choose your own adventure inspired ones, and your Marvel team up. You got your Molotov comics. You're approved by the Cutters Code. It's so on point. Hopefully, you don't have to pay any royalties for being inspired. Well, if you were an AI, they might come after you and get you to pay. But looks great. I'm glad to So if people want to check out some timeless classics such as Dinosaur Nunchucks or Funky Dope Fresh, where can people find you there, Will?
On the Table Beats app or Tableist.net, on their online looper, or on their app as well.
Good stuff. Tasia, you've got a funky fresh video for us this week?
I sure do. Tomorrow is deadline day, y'all. Google Album Archive is shutting down. So I made a video explaining what Album Archive is, because there's a lot of people confused and they think things are leaving from Google Photos and people are freaking out. So I'm explaining what it is, and then also how to download either your complete archive or just what you want from your archive and let the rest go the way with the wind.
Without spoiling too much of your video, I have to confess, I have no idea what Google Album Archive is. I don't use Google Photos either. But what is this thing, and will many people be affected?
Guys, it's a walk down memory lane, and y'all probably want to check out what's in your album archive, because I went through it as I was screencasting for my video. I was like, oh my God, this is walk down memory lane. Okay, so old blogger content. So basically your album archive contains all the old media, so photos and videos from Google Relics. So think of Blogger, think of Picasso Web. Remember Picasso Web albums?
No,
before
I don't
Google
want to see
Photos?
this.
Thank you very much. Google Plus calls. If you took screenshots from Google Plus calls, you guys, you have to, I tell you in the video how to access your album archive. Go see what's in it, because it's going to shut down tomorrow. You won't be able to get your content out. So even if you don't want it and it's weird, it's just funny. So I was cracking up because I was like, oh my God, when I was in university, I made all these blogs on the Habs, and I was like, oh man. And it got the date. So it was kind of fun to go down there, but that's what it is. So go in there and see. And it's only stuff that's only in the archive. So if that stuff is also in your Google Photos or somewhere else, you're fine. It's just what is only in the archive. You have until tomorrow, gentlemen. Enjoy. It's kind of tell me what's in it. I want to know.
Reminds me of a time probably 20, 25 years ago. I ran across an old roll of undeveloped film of photos I took in elementary school. And I got that developed, and it was a little degraded. There's a little, red, pink fringing around the edges, but I was like, oh my goodness, a time capsule of stuff from 15 years earlier. That was pretty exciting.
That's
all right.
Treasure.
Thank you for the hot tip. So where can people find your work, Tasia?
YouTube.com/Tasia Custodi, or just go to TasiaCustodi.com.
For all things Tasia. And for all things Momentous, you can visit us momentous.tv/links. You can follow our individual accounts at momentous.tv/team, and the audio version of this whole nonsense at momentous.tv/podcast. We did it, guys, 2 weeks in a row with the whole band back together. Oh, it makes my heart sing.
And just over an hour.
Not bad.
Yes.
Nighty night. We hope your sleep and your week are truly momentous.